As educators and elected officials debate about the upcoming school year, a lawyer from right here in New York City has filed a national class action suit to force schools to reopen and provide services to students with special needs. Joining us now via Skype is Patrick Donohue, founder and chairman of the Brain Injury Rights Group. Mr. Donohue, we appreciate you being here with us this evening. And first and foremost, this lawsuit names Mayor de Blasio, schools chancellor Richard Carranza, and other districts as defendants. Explain what you want this lawsuit to accomplish.
So there are five primary components of the lawsuit. The first is we're seeking the school districts to either reopen immediately and start providing services for the students that are outlined in their IEPs, or we're going to be seeking a pendency voucher to allow the parents to self-cure the deficiencies that the school districts are doing all over the country. The second piece is that each one of these kids that have not been receiving proper services for 4 or 5, almost going on 6 months, they all need to be independently evaluated because there are changes that have occurred for the lack of services that these guys have had, these students have had. The second is that after those independent evaluations are done, there needs to be compensatory services for those students. The third piece is that once those evaluations are done, many of these students are going to need to have new IEPs. These new issues and problems have developed. There are students that prior to the shutdown, they may not have had any behavioral problems, and now they have behavioral problems. They may have loss of services. They may have had atrophy or regression. The fourth piece is that many of these parents either had to spend money out of their own pocket to do the jobs of the school districts, or some of them actually lost their own employment because they couldn't both do the job of the school districts and their own job. And the fifth piece is to seek punitive damages for these millions of families around the country. I mean, the fact of the matter is there are over 7 million students nationwide receiving special education services. And it's absolutely horrible what's going on for these kids. And these school districts have, in essence, very simply violated federal law.
Right. Mr. Donohue, this is very personal for you. You have a teenage daughter with special needs. Explain for our audience what happened to your own daughter's education when the city shut down in March.
Well, because I have a school that I founded, a special needs, a private school in New York City, we actually did the right thing. We maintained providing in-person services for the kids, for all of our students that were able to receive them throughout the entire shutdown. So in April, we provided services at the students' homes. In May, our facility at iBrain reopened. All of our staff have been COVID tested. We've had students return and provide services. I mean, in other words, my daughter has actually not been a victim of this because of the school that I founded. But when I saw what was happening to millions of families all over the country, I just couldn't sit idly by. I had to step up and do something. And that's why, we filed this national class action, which now has over 500 plaintiffs from over 25 states around the country that have signed up to be part of this.
Okay, I don't have a lot of time left, but you want schools to reopen in September, all of them. But what about the safety of teachers and other staff who could be at risk?
So actually what I want is the schools to reopen immediately. I mean, there are tens of thousands just in New York City alone that have 12-month school programming that are not receiving school programming. The fact of the matter is, when you look at the science, which everybody wants to talk about the science, when we talk about kids are not susceptible, kids do not spread this. And if you look at the science, the average age of a teacher is 41 years old. And we know from the science and the data that if you're under 50 years of age, actually if you're under 55 years of age, the significant impact of COVID doesn't really approach you. Now, that's not to say there isn't a cohort of teachers and therapists and staff that may be high risk, that obviously you need to insulate them like you would around anybody. But the fact of the matter is, it is safe now for most staff and for most kids to reopen immediately. That's what the science currently says. And the CDC backs me up, the American Academy of Pediatrics back me up. Every single scientific research, and if you go to the website we created for this, reopenclass.com, we actually post all of the science. There's dozens and dozens of scientific research and literature from around the world and including the United States that demonstrate it is safe to reopen immediately.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it,
Okay.
Cheryl, you had days.
Okay. Yeah, we're out of time. Yeah, I apologize, we're out of
Okay.
time, but I do have to say
it's
this.
okay.
During the pandemic, we did report on the deaths of principals, teachers, paraprofessionals. So what the science says and what reality says sometimes are two different things. Patrick Donohue, founder and chairman of the Brain Injury Rights Group, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Cheryl, for your time.